All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite dark sorcerer here, practicing necromancer, demonologist, warlock, satanist. Yeah, I'm still practicing and I'm still kicking. Um, I know I haven't really been online a lot over the last month and a half area, and that's due to me going out and studying, researching, and practicing sorcery. Magics, from necromancy to spiritual conjurations to rituals and rites with various different traditions. I got back into my satanic practices working with Satan and the demonic. And most importantly, I've been reaching out through ancestral magics, working within Brujeria practices, necromantic to be precise. And lately, I've been really delving into shamanism. Shamanism is used for a lot of good things, but also can be something to be feared. A lot of people have forgotten this fact. So I've been reaching out and really studying everything from the Shem priesthood to the Hashedin group within the Middle East, down into Indonesia practices, the Santet practices of the Dukan, which is basically a black shaman. I've been delving into areas of the most feared black magicians in the world coming from India. Philosophy has played a huge part into where my practices have been going and ended up. Today, I actually printed out a few things. Been printing out quite a bit that I've been typing up. This one alone is on the priesthoods and that of Santet practices. And it's really amazing how many people have forgotten the past, and specifically that of the area of medicinal practices. I'm talking herbalism, remedies for healing or for, say, for example, poisoning. Okay, you look at the 17th century in Europe, one of the biggest causes of assassinations was hemlock poisoning, other forms of poisoning to get rid of enemies within the courts of the kingdoms. And assassinations within, say, for an example, the old, how should I put this? The old practices of Japanese tradition, for an example, ranging from the 14th century forward. We have that of the secret art of ninjutsu. Okay, ninjutsu, in the area of the samurai practices before transitioning into the art of ninja, somewhere around the 14th, 15th century, dealt with remedies, powders, elixirs, even that were said to be so potent that there was no cure for them. And the only cure that really existed was that of the practitioner that created that type of poison. Even today, we've had numerous cases worldwide of poisonings, from the little apple to, um, say, for an example, that of hemlock. Hemlock is perhaps one of the greatest things that people have committed suicide with. And that is because it's tasteless and odorless. But more so, when you get into herbalism and you learn what you can use for healings. For an example, turmeric, okay, is great. It's a powder that is great. You can find it in your grocery aisle, specifically that of the herbs and spices. It's great for cardiac. and cardiac issues. If you have, say, for example, high blood pressure, or perhaps you're susceptible to heart attacks and strokes and stuff like that. This is something that is used for to help reduce these effects. Okay, if you deal with cholesterol issues, okay, this also helps. Okay, but it's not just this. Turmeric can also be a part of, say, for an example, ground ginger. Ground ginger is something else that is useful along with mushrooms and garlic. Okay, combined, they help reduce cholesterol related issues. So, shamanism does play a huge part in a lot of this herbal remedies. It's not just the study of plants and fruits and vegetables, but no matter where you go in the world, either what is classified as the old world or that of the new world, traditions, or if you want to go with NATO, or the opposing forces, you know, um, either way you look at it, herbalism plays a huge part in magical practices. And recently, I've delved into Indonesian practices, and this is due to the research into Islamic traditions. Okay, um, if we get into Middle Eastern traditions, we know that Islam is heavily influencing the worlds of Africa all the way up into the Middle East. We still have those holy wars today, the Holy Crusades, you know, so to speak. And the religious aspects of this have been catastrophic because it's related to religious wars and holy wars. We all know this, going as far back as the Knights of Templar. Hell, even if we go all the way back to that of the early Judeo-Christian communities, okay, such as that of the time of BCE, Christ era. Okay, we see where the belief structures have created a rift, not just with the people, but we also see the stories that have been placed in the biblical sense. For an example, the mud and saliva that helps the blind man see. The remedies that are used for the offerings, the sin offerings, for an example, just to name a couple. We see the practices of necromancy and soothsaying. This is stuff that is still common, and it's an outlook within any given practice of witchcraft, be it from the scientific, be it alchemy, be it herbalism through healing or destructive means, divining purposes for that of, say, soothsayers. Okay, yes, that is a term that's found in the main Bibles, okay, that the main body of Christians use. We even see the various different names of gods, God and gods, the various beings such as the genies, being used and called forth for aiding purposes within the Decon practices. The practices of a Decon, which is basically like a Bokor, a warlock type practice. But they're also, like I said, they're mostly hired to do these things. Commerce plays a huge part in any given religious context. I've spoken on that one in the past. And so here I am. I've been really delving into thanatology. I've been really hitting hard within anthropology practices. More so, getting into the religious context and why is it considered religious? What is it about these practices that people still fear? Because there's so many sources and so many contents out there, be it from authors of renowned so-called specialists that claim to be specialists, but nobody really puts forth the the ingredients for these practices. So I've really been delving into all of this aspect. And recently over the last few the last week or so, I've been really concentrating within Indonesia. I've had friends from this region that I've talked with and talked to. And now that I've been into Brujeria practices for a while and getting into the African Caribbean traditions, knowing that these traditions have gone all the way back to Africa and even up into European practices, I'm really stretching forth my hand and really delving into the gnosis behind them, getting into the actual practices and getting those experiences. For an example, to become initiated into the Dukan, which is Dukun, so you spell it, practices, it's normally passed down from one generation to another, but the word of mouth is accepted. And what's interesting here is it's kept highly secret, much like that of the Bokos practices, much like the warlocks practices. I mean, if you look at European descents, the witch's oath is literally to know, to will, to dare, to keep silent, and to go forth. Basically, going forth and practicing and applying it to your life. So, taking this into account, I reached out to some of my old friends from that region, and I started um, petitioning. How can I become associated or acquainted with these types of practices? Santet is Santet. Okay, and it's just one of a few types of practices that a Dukan performs. Yes, it is considered to be black magic, and it is to cause pain and suffering along with instant death. This and what I found interesting about this practice alone is the fact that it takes several months. I've been saying this to clients and everything for years now that you can't just jump on it. There is no easy button, because just because you hire somebody to do baneful magic doesn't mean it's just going to go, oh, there it is. No, it is something that's got to take root. It could hit in an instant. It could go weeks, days, weeks, months, even years down the road. I mean, even in Santet practices, it said that it takes place over several months to where the person or group of people have been constantly getting hit and affected with such negative energies to the point where the body just basically gives up and the person or group of people become acceptable to the influence. And this is done through sickness, vomiting, even death even takes hold. So it does take place just within any other given system of magic, okay, of sorcery. But like I said, these people are paid to do this. And even studying this application and this aspect of style and tradition over the last few weeks, I've also noticed a common trend, even as late as all the way up to 1998, even to this day. Two aspects here. Number one, the more modern day witch hunts, the witch trials, where it is said that 150 to 300 Dukan were put to death because people's paranoia that they may or may not have been cursed or have some kind of effected spell casting put upon them were executed by the legal system or out of vengeance by the populace. That's just in Indonesia. If we get into the late 80s and early 90s, we see it again within Satanism, where any crime, what a supposed satanic practitioner was behind it. Out of the entire length of Satanism being made to the public, only one former Satanist was associated with any criminality, and that was Manson and his family. And yet people still judge and persecute witches, either through fraud cases, even through defamation cases, or even through self-made vendettas. Anita venduto, the Italian term for blood vendetta. Think about this for just a moment. How much do you actually know about witchcraft, necromancy, divination, possession? Think about that for just a moment. The reason I want you to start thinking about this is because of the fact that if you go with a herd mentality, innocents get harmed. Even today, we look at the two aspects of study. Clergy. The clergy from the church condemns any association with witchcraft. Look at northern portions of, or even southern portions of Mexico. Okay, prime example. The church forbids it, says it's of the devil. But yet, how many Christians and how many people go forth and purchase services from black magicians, sorcerers, necromancers? Even in the Bible itself, Jesus Christ himself brought two people back from the dead. Even King Saul went to the witch of Endor. Nicodemus, an astrologer, and a leading factor of his time within astronomy, went to Jesus and said, "Hey, how do I get into heaven?" "Well, you have to be born of water and born again." "Well, how the fuck do I do that?" Well, he explains it. But we also see other instances where King Solomon, for an example, summoned how many demons? Is that not chiromancy? Is that not necromantic practices of summoning and conjuring spirits? Think about this for just a minute. Why would you follow a group of hypocrites, such as the church? These fearmongers who fear knowledge, fear individuality, and fear the arts of magic in general. It does not matter what color the magic is, red, blue, green, black, white, it's all the same. Magic is magic. It is the individual whose perception and uses of said magic is what defines good or evil. Like I said, people purchased curses from practitioners. This is viewed throughout the world. In the clergy aspect, it doesn't matter if you're a Catholic monk who pimped himself out to the public to perform rites of blessings, or the Black Mass of the 17th, 18th century. Examples. Or that of the practitioners who resided and was consulted upon by the king, the tribal kings of Africa, all the way up to the shaman and hexa, the strega of European countries. Even the druids themselves, and ancient Gaelic druids, were consulted before any action took place, going as far back as ancient Roman times, going back to the Paleolithic era, proto cultures, even. How many practitioners have actually documented this? And even though I am studying this and practicing this stuff and what I'm learning, what I'm acquiring knowledge wise is amazing. I have a friend of mine who is into Vudan within Ghana and Nigerian practices. He gave me a list of things to purchase, and I've been acquiring them little by little through my biweekly paychecks. Because some of them, to be frank, is quite expensive, about $50 for just one set of incense. And it's a specifically made incense for the rite that he wants me to perform, that he wants to teach me to perform. And it is just getting a list of these things together and actually finding them on Google, or, either on Google or on Amazon, even eBay is amazing. It's actually more difficult than you know. And then you have to wait a couple of weeks, like 14 to 17 days, sometimes a month or two, just to get one of these items, depending on where it is in the world. So it does take time to develop these, not only the tools and to get them, but to also practice them and learn to master these techniques. So I'm actually intrigued and interested in the Dukan practices of shamanism. So much so, I actually typed up 4 pages of my own notes, and I'm still going. I've got over 8 pages just in PDF format on the priesthoods, going as far back as the ancient the first dynasty of Egypt, to proto cultures, monotheistic and polytheistic cultures, not just modern times. And I'm loving every minute of it. I'm really enjoying these studies, these practices. But I wanted to jump on here and kind of let you know, hey, I'm still here. I'm still kicking. I'm still studying. I'm still practicing. I may not be on as much as I used to be, but I'm still leading by example. I'm still learning. I'm still studying, researching. And what's interesting is anthropology has helped in this line because it focuses on main, four main topics of study. And it goes along with thanatology and sociology. Freaking amazing. I recommend, if you're serious about your studies, get into these. All right? Have a good day. And remember 2 things. Whatever you preach, always back it up with numerous sources. And number 2, always make yourself available to the public, because you answer to the public, not to yourself. You answer to the spirits, not yourself. Because you learn from the public, or whatever you learn from the spirits, and you apply it, you are responsible. Have a good day.